All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular, the AWD 1112 Application Programming with Java class, I'm doing a series of video presentations based on the textbooks used for the class. I'm right near the end of the first textbook, which is Java Quick Syntax Reference. It has 23 chapters, of which 22 are in this PDF. I am up to Chapter 20 on exception handling. And again, some of the stuff that I'll mention in here is stuff you've heard in other classes, such as exceptions are exceptions to the rule. They're exceptions to the norm. In other words, they're things that ideally shouldn't happen. So as the author mentions here, exception handling allows programmers to deal with unexpected situations that may occur in programs. For instance, what if I tried to access a file in a program that didn't exist? I would get a file not found exception. Another really example that you use a lot is if I do this. Let me get that out of there. So I'm going to create a quick array, int bracket bracket grades equal, and let's just say in here we're going to get 3 grades, 44, 66, and 70. All right? So I come through here and I do this, and now I say for int LCV equals 0, LCV less than or equal to, I'm putting an error in here, grades dot length plus LCV. And I come in and I just want to print out the grades. So system.out.println grade plus, make this smaller because otherwise you'll never be able to read it. All right, so plus grades sub LCV. Now I'm going to get an error when I run this, and the reason I'm going to get an error is it'll print out 44 because that's grades 0. It'll print out 66, which is grades 1. It'll print out 70, which is grades 2. But this should have said less than. Since it says less than or equal, it'll try to print out grades sub 3, the 4th grade. There won't be one. So I will get an array index out of bounds exception. That'll actually come up on the screen. To try to keep that from happening, you typically, when you work with exception handling, you put your code inside of what's called a try-catch block. You've got a try, and inside of the curlies is the code that could conceivably fail. All right, it is the code that could conceivably fail. All right, then in the catch, and you can have multiple catch blocks, you put in what you want to do if that code does fail. All right, so it says to get rid of an error like this, the exception must be caught using a try catch. The statement consists of a try block with a code that may cause an exception and one or more catch. If the try block executes successfully, so if this works, you totally skip the catch. If it doesn't work, you jump from here into the code that would be in here, and you can't go back to this code. All right? So in the example above, it says the catch block is only set to handle this, but again, you could have multiple catch blocks. They have to be put in order too, from most specific to least specific. So an exception E is the most general type exception, is the most general type of exception you can have. So if you use it, it must go at the end. In addition to try catch, you can put in a finally block. This is optional. If you have a finally block, so look at the example here. If this works, you skip the catch and you do the finally. If this doesn't work, you jump out of there, you jump to here, but you still do the finally. So finally is typically used for housekeeping. type of operations. You use it to clean up, close files, close database connections, etc. All right? When the situation occurs that a method cannot recover from, it can generate its own exception to signal what the problem is, all right, and the fact that it's done. So we can throw our own exceptions. Now, Java has scores of exceptions that it already has. Earlier, I showed you this, and I think in here someplace, is there java.exception? Does not look like it. Is there exception in here? How about this? Java exceptions. All right. And Java API. All right, there's the exception class. These are all the exceptions that can be thrown. Now, even though it might look like, well, that'll handle everything and anything. No, it won't. Let's suppose that I'm doing a program that does miles per gallon. I'm figuring out how many miles per gallon somebody gets, for their gas. And let's suppose that I say that the maximum miles they can drive on any one tank is 1,000. If we put in more than 1,000, I might want to throw my own exception, an out of bounds exception. Or if they enter a negative number, I might want to throw an out of bounds exception. All right? There are two types of exceptions. They are checked and unchecked, depending on whether or not they need to be specified. A method that throws a checked exception will not compile unless it specifies using a throws clause, or it somehow handles it. Unchecked exceptions don't have to be caught. A lot of times with unchecked exceptions, there are things you have no control over. For example, now an arithmetic exception is not an example, but an example would be if you run out of memory on your machine. That's nothing a Java program can handle. That's something you'd have to handle yourself. Exceptions, like everything else in Java, exist in what's called a hierarchy. All right. At the root of the hierarchy, right below object, is the throwable class. And underneath the throwable are errors and exceptions. Errors are non-recoverable exceptions. That's like the one I told you, like an out-of-memory error. You can't handle those, not within a Java program. But you can handle, all right, different types of exceptions. It says, for example, to divide by 0 will throw an arithmetic exception. You can keep that from happening by, if it does, by handling it. All right, so the program doesn't blow up. That's it. I'm done with the first 20 chapters. I'm going to try to see if I can sneak one more in before my students get here, that being chapter 21, which will leave me with just 3 more to go. So I'll be back with the next chapter shortly.